What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of HBCU Huddle. For those who may not know, I am CJ Hurt, joined alongside always by Mike Wallace. Mike, how's everything going?
Hey, it's going well, CJ. Thanks for having me. I'm not a guest on this show. I'm a co-host, man. I'm tripping. I've been doing radio and TV hits all morning, but it's good to be on this show, on our show, HBCU Huddle, and I'm coming to you guys from Detroit, where the other part of my role is Grizzlies analyst and reporter. So I'm here in Detroit ahead of our game tonight against the Detroit Pistons. But looking forward to chopping it up on the HBCU Huddle and with all the latest, man. We got a great show today.
Yeah, on this episode, we will discuss some of my favorite games from the regular season games from the college football season. We'll talk a little bit about the finalists for the Black College Football Hall of Fame. We'll get to highlight another big upset win on the men's college basketball side of things, plus so much more. But first, we got our cousin in town, baby. Donal Ware joins us. For those who don't know, cousin Donal is the curator of the BoxToRow Media and Coaches Poll. You can listen to him on SiriusXM and follow him on Twitter at DWare1. Donal, how you doing, man?
Mike and CJ, what's good, man? Good to be with you guys. As always, happy Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you guys.
Yeah, same to you and yours. I love the sweater. I would have wore something a bit more festive. I got some Christmas lights I can put around. I got a Christmas light necklace. I should have worn that. I love the sweater. But let's get things started with the SWAC championship game. Florida A&M won convincingly. I'll start things off, Donal, by asking you, what do you think it is that makes this FAMU team so good and so difficult to beat?
It's a complete football team. But I think that, especially on the defensive side of football, I think that's where the calling card is for Florida A&M. And we can talk about Jeremy Musa, and you can talk about, and he's had a really solid season. But that defense with Isaiah Major, Bowler, all of those guys is absolutely dominating. And, when I came on with you guys back in September, I said, this thing is wrapped up, and I really believed that at the time. And I don't really think there was a lot of challenge for Florida A&M throughout the course of the season. The Jackson State game obviously was a big game, that first game of the season, but this is a really, really good Florida A&M team. And no surprise that the Rattlers finally able to get over the hump and get that SWAC championship.
Yeah, absolutely, Donal. So not just the season as a whole. It's FAMU. It's Howard in the Celebration Bowl. How surprised are you that the Howard Bison managed to win the MEAC this year and get to the Celebration Bowl?
Not overly surprised, but I would tell you that I did think North Carolina Central would win it. I thought that they would win the matchup between the Eagles and the Bison, and I was absolutely dead wrong. As a matter of fact, the Bison blew them out, and I thought I thought that there would be sort of some motivation on the Eagles side from last year having to share that MEAC championship. But look, that's a Bison team that's the real deal. I've always said for so many years that when you look at Howard and you talk about athletics, maybe the university as a whole not as serious about it. But I don't think you can. I can't really look. Basketball, defending champions. The men are defending champions. That volleyball team's very good. So you look at that Bison football team and what is going on in athletics at Howard. It's sort of I don't want to say a renaissance moment, but we don't see this a lot when you're talking about Howard athletes.
When you think about Davius Richards' case for Black College Football Player of the Year, is it hurt at all by the loss to Howard and the fact that his team isn't the champion of the MEAC, doesn't get to play in the Celebration Bowl?
Man, that's a good question. I would say no, because to me, when you look, he still has the numbers. He's second in the FCS in terms of points responsible for per game. He's got all of these different numbers. Now, this wasn't the season that he's had in years past. There's no doubt about that. But when Davius Richards steps out on the football field, maybe not against Howard, generally speaking, he's the best player on the field. You can clearly see that. And so I think that said, even with the loss to Howard, now if Howard had somebody, now Quentin Williams is really good, but I don't see anybody that's comparable to a Davius Richard when you're talking about HBCU football as a whole.
Well, Donal, I will say this though. I agree. Davius Richard is the MEAC Player of the Year. He should be, probably the Black College Player of the Year. But I will say, I'm team I'm team Larry Scott, and I think he should have got MEAC Coach of the Year over Trey Oliver. I don't know how the vote ended up, how close it was, and that's not to say take anything from North Carolina Central's coach Trey Oliver. He's done a phenomenal job over this 2-year run, but they lost head-to-head to Howard, and North Carolina Central knew everything that was on the line for that game, and it was Larry Scott that got his team to perform at a dominant level in that game. I don't know if I haven't seen Central get beat that badly in a long time. You know what I mean? I don't think UCLA beat them that badly as Howard did. But having said that, what do you make of the job of Larry Scott and where he has Howard right now? Because not only did they beat Central, they also could have beat Northwestern, which is a bowl team. You know what I mean? In the FCS, FBS. So what do you make of him, and what does Howard need to do to sort of keep him there? Because that's going to be some competition for that brother pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, but look, now he's had success at the FBS level. You look at what he was able to do at Miami. So he definitely will be fielding, some calls as he continues to build this program. I think you make a great point. Larry Scott's done a tremendous job because, as I mentioned, there are some challenges at Howard. I would say that Howard football is akin to Duke football. You've got some academic challenges that are there to get those guys, to get some of the more elite athletes to kind of come in. He's recruited that DMV area, which has really become really, really big in football. Go no further than Quentin Williams, who outside of Davius Richard, if it wasn't for Davius Richard, would be the MEAC Player of the Year. So I think he's done an absolutely tremendous job there at Howard with some challenges. And look, I think he likes it at Howard. I think it would have to be the absolute right offer for him to go somewhere else, but I really think he likes it at Howard, and he's building a really good program. Having talked with him from time to time, Mike, we're from the area. Howard people are a certain kind of way, and Larry Scott's becoming like that. Like Howard is, it's on this plateau, and rightfully so when you look at the history of Howard University as a whole. But I really think he likes it and is doing a tremendous job.
From one coach or two coaches who you could argue for their right to have Coach of the Year in their conference, to coaches who kind of had their tenures ending a bit unceremoniously, we will go. Hugh Jackson, dismissed from Grambling State. Southern also decided it's time to move on from Coach Dooley as well. When you look at some of the openings around the HBCU landscape, which job stands out to you the most as, okay, that's one that I would like to have if I was a coach?
Man, I want to say Southern, but that's a tough job. Ask Dawson Odoms. Like, he had a lot of success, but he could never. And again, he was going up against some Grambling teams that were really tough. He was going up against some Alcorn State teams that were really, really tough. And it seemed like it never was enough. I was very surprised by the Eric Dooley firing. Quite frankly, you look at a man that took he's not a Southern guy, but you know what I mean? Like, he's done his thing at Southern, even under the Pete Richardson era. He's won everywhere he's been. There's been a championship that's been won by whatever school he's been at. I thought it was unceremonious, but in listening to Roman Banks in the press conference, I kind of understood from the vantage point of maybe Eric Dooley didn't relate to Southern people. He didn't relate in the manner in which he needed to, but he had some success. That probably would be a job if I was a pressure guy and I wanted that kind of pressure. That's the job that I, in fact, would want, because the fan base is almost like no other. And you can have a lot of success. And if you have a lot of success at Southern, then they will embrace you as a la a Pete Richardson, et cetera.
Where it seems like when you look across the landscape, Benedict Chennis-Berry is the hot name. Yeah. He seems to have multiple suitors for his services based on what he's done at Benedict the last 2 seasons. Having said that, what do you think, having been around him, what do you think his intent is? Because he could stay at Benedict and really, really solidify them as an HBCU dynasty at the Division II level. They hadn't had the success nationally across the board as we would like. But what do you think his priorities are in that situation? Because right down the street, South Carolina State is right there too, and it seems like that would be the natural progression. But maybe that's too close for comfort when it comes to Coach Barry and what he's looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be. I think, to be honest with you, I don't know how much more he can do at Benedict. I mean, they've had a couple of years to win a playoff game, first round bye, couldn't get it done. I'm not sure what the scholarships are. Obviously, there's a discrepancy, I would think, in scholarships compared to what Benedict gets and then what some of these other Division II schools are able to get, even though obviously Benedict has a very, very good program and some tremendous players. He needs another challenge. You know what I mean? Like I talked about Dawson Odoms. Well, guess what? A lot of that success that Dawson Odoms had was because of Chennis Berry when he was there at Southern as well. So he needs, I think, more of a challenge. I think that South Carolina State job would in fact be a challenge, much like Buddy Pugh had to be under a legend and Willie Jeffries. It could kind of be, sort of the same thing. But the other thing is this: even though South Carolina State looks like it could be the job that makes the most sense, even at Benedict, even though it's D2, you're going now from potentially from a private school to a state school. You can't do as many things. He can do many more things at Benedict. I'm not saying that's why he would stay, but it would obviously be more of a challenge, I think, at South Carolina State. I don't know that I can't say he wouldn't have success right away. I think ultimately he would, but people shouldn't think that immediately he would win 8-9 games with the Bulldogs if he were to take that job. I'm not saying he can't, but I think you have to kind of temper the expectations and then see how he's able to build a program if South Carolina State in fact would be that job.
And I want to have a quick follow-up before CJ wraps this up with you here. There's also some smoke around the whole Ed Reed, revisiting some things. Grambling was obviously interested in him before he chose to go to Bethune-Cookman. That blew up, obviously, for reasons that, Ed Reed needed to be a little more mature about the way he carried himself. Bethune-Cookman needed to be more realistic about the resources and the challenges they had. Are we in a place where we can revisit Ed Reed and he deserves maybe a second chance, especially on the HBCU level?
Man, that's a great question, Mike. I don't know. And I'm going to tell you why. It was so bad. Like, it was terrible. Like, you're supposed to be a head football coach, and some of the language, and I mean, I get it. It's Instagram and whatever. I think it was just so bad that, to me, he would really have to show the administration at Grambling something for me to hire him. And really, once he made that first Instagram post, I had 3 words for Bethune-Cookman: cut bait now. And they ultimately did that. I think it was so bad the first time around. I don't know, but he would have to really show that Grambling administration something. And if I were there, he'd have to show me something major for me to hire him as the head coach.
Donal Ware, BoxToRow, poll curator, catch him on Sirius XM. Does a whole lot of things with HBCUs, North Carolina A&T, and so much more. We'll get you out of here on this question. If we look at the BoxToRow polls from week 1 to today, now I think we have week 1's and we have today's polls to the graphics of them. If we look at it, this is week 1 from this year in college football. What team surprised you the most, good or bad? What team did you say, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting them to play this well? And what team kind of disappointed you this season looking at the rankings?
Yeah, I like Morgan State. I think it could have been a little bit more for the Bears. Let one get away, certainly against Akron. No doubt about that. Played North Carolina Central as well as you could play the Eagles with essentially no offense. So I think when you look at a team that really excelled, especially looking at this list, I definitely would say Morgan State, was really that team. Yeah, A&T, I mean, you'd have to say A&T. I don't think anybody saw 1-10 coming, even though you had a new coach. And you had a new coach, sort of new players. You lose your 3 best players, which is definitely a challenge. to any program. So I definitely would say that was a bit of a surprise, A&T going 1-10. But I think the Aggies will rebound, as we've talked about on this show before, and certainly compete a little bit better in 2020.
He is Donal Ware. Follow him on Twitter at DWare1. Donal, thank you so much for taking some time out to talk to us, man.
Absolutely. Always glad to do it, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Donal.
Yep.
We'll take a quick break. When we get back, we will talk some more about some of my favorite games from the season. We'll talk more about South Carolina State and Buddy Pugh, plus more on the other side. You're listening to HBCU Huddle right here on Grind City Media.
Let's talk about what's going on in the rest of the NBA.
Which one of these three teams has been the most surprising and impressive to you?
We in Minnesota now. Definitely. I thought that Minnesota was going to be a better team. Did I know that they were going to be this good? I don't know.
Hey, Grizzlies fans, be sure to tune in to Grizzbeat, where the panel and I break down all things Grizzlies and take a look at the rest of the NBA as well. The show is live every Wednesday, 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Can't wait. I mean, we're going to have a new roster.
The Memphis Grizzlies welcome their newest Grizzly, Marcus Smart.
Coming to Memphis, that blue collar, is going to be great. So to be able to go out there and try to bring the championship to that city, it's an honor.
We're all hungry.
Let's go, big dog. Keep fighting, keep fighting.
We're super excited to be in front of the best fans in the league and hopefully deliver a memorable season.
If you guys don't know what this is, I'm sure some of you guys caught an L today, because we definitely caught an L today.
Yes.
This is the Kobe 6 Pro Show Reverse Grinch. Yep. So the regular Grinch had, where everything is red, and it was green with the black swoosh on there with the
red laces.
With the red laces. So now they just did the reverse model of these here. So these are actually good. Like, they real light too.
They're nice.
The Sneak Fest Show, live Tuesdays at 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
We're going dancing. Welcome to Fandom 101. We need you going crazy in the stands. Your path to fan mastery begins here. It's all part of the curriculum. The NCAA Division I men's basketball first and second rounds this March in Memphis, Tennessee. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/MBB tickets. Class dismissed.
Comes into Hubbard in the corner. Hubbard with 5. Hubbard leaning, has it rejected. Picked up by Southern, and Southern is going to wrap it up with a dunk on the other end. The Jaguars pull off the upset. The bucket won't count. It doesn't matter. Southern still wins it by a point.
Look how quiet it was in that arena, Mike. The Southern Jaguars men's basketball team knocked off number 21 ranked Mississippi State on the road. They were down 59-48 with just under 4.5 minutes remaining. They go on a 12-0 run to end the game. Brandon Davis takes the lead, or gives the Jaguars the lead thanks to his layup with like 20 seconds left. Mike, this is the second one. Not the second one. It's one of a handful that we've seen on both the men's and the women's side. When you see this, does this give you any hope that this could be the year that an HBCU advances out of the first round of the big tournament?
Oh, it absolutely does, CJ. It absolutely does. And the key to this is these selection committees and these committees. We've seen what happened in the college football committee, right? And ultimately, on another conversation, I do think they got it right. But in this sense, when it's basketball, they have to seed these teams properly. And you have to look at some of the opportunities that these HBCUs have done when they had big-time games to step up in. We've seen team after team show that they can get a win. Jackson State knocked off Missouri. Now you're talking about Southern going on the road and beating a ranked Mississippi State team. So you can't relegate these teams to 16s and 15 seeds every year. So do I have hope that if they get a fair seeding going into the NCAA tournament, that they can knock off a 4 or a 3 seed? Absolutely. And this is more, this is more proof in the pudding right there. So good job to Southern. And they did it defensively too. That rejection that we just showed, I mean, to be able to do that at the end of a clutch situation in a game at the Hump, and I've been at the Hump. That place could be rocking when that team is good. Humphrey Coliseum down at Mississippi State. So Southern got another big win. We've seen Alcorn go on the road and do some things. Jackson State's done some big things.
Almost got
Howard,
Georgetown also.
Howard's done some good things as well too. So the MEAC and the SWAC won't be anything to sneeze at when it comes to getting in these tournaments, whether it's the NCAA or the NIT.
I don't know if anybody has heard this, but Memphis is having the first and second rounds of the tournament. You can get your tickets today. Come to FedEx Forum and maybe be a part of it. Well, you'll certainly be a part of history. Maybe be a part of history watching an HBCU get to the Sweet 16. We don't get that often at this level. So come on out, go buy your tickets, and come to FedEx Forum and catch some quality college basketball. All right, Mike, it's time for the Pick Six this week. We don't have games, so now we're just going to share some of our 6 favorite things or 6 things that make us ponder a bit. And so this week, I decided to do a list of my 6 favorite games from the season, 6 best games from the college football season at the HBCU level. We'll get things started off right here with number 6, Southern Heritage Classic, Tennessee State versus Arkansas Pine Bluff. We were both in attendance. Tennessee State wins that one 24-14. They were in control of that game most of the game, Mike. Third quarter ends, they're up 17-0, and there's nothing that I think at the time Arkansas Pine Bluff can do to stop this. Lo and behold, I look up. Arkansas Pine Bluff gets not 1 but 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. One of those drives was damn near 15 minutes. They held the football, and it all comes down. They get into the red zone, Mike. They can't push the ball any further. That's fine. That's okay. We're going to send the field goal team out. We're going to tie this thing up. We're going to force an overtime. Nope, not at all. Not so fast. Tennessee State gets the blocked field goal. Then they scoop it, score it, running the other way, running down the home. Well, not the home because it's a neutral site game, but running down the Tennessee State sideline, running directly into the Tennessee State half of the end zone, scores a touchdown, crowd goes wild. It's amazing, Mike.
Man, it was. I mean, that was an exceptional ending to a game that really didn't live up to the hype that we normally are associated with in the Southern Heritage Classic. But again, two new teams facing each other for the first time in this thing in a while. And I think overall that set Tennessee State up for what was a great start to their season. They kind of faded down the stretch, but it pushed Tennessee State towards a great start. I think they were 6-3 at one point on the year. UAPB, it was the first of several heartbreaks that they would have to, losing a lot of close games in frustrating fashion. But sure, that game goes at the top of your list. It goes at the top of mine too when it comes to that.
Just look at this play right here, Mike. Look at the field goal block. I do believe we have it.
Yep.
You hear the crowd roar? How loud that crowd is, and gone. Nobody's going to catch him, man. Crowd is going crazy. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, Tennessee State, man, they sleptwalked their way through, as you see Coach Hampton and Coach George right there, 2 fine, great gentlemen. And I wish the best for both of those guys, man. They're 2 of my favorite coaches to deal with in HBCU sports or in all of sports. And I just hope both of these teams can bounce back and take the gradual next step to even more success next season.
Absolutely. I also hope, don't know how dialed in you were, listeners were to the city council meeting about the selling of Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, or the gifting of Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. Fred Jones had some poignant words in that city council meeting. I hope that with the sale of that stadium, they do take into consideration some of the other tenants, not just the Memphis Tigers football team, but AutoZone Liberty Bowl. We'll slow down a little bit. And the Southern Heritage Classic. It is a very important cultural moment for the city, and it would be a damn shame to lose it. I do believe everybody's going to come together and get everything worked out, but I did want to point that out. All right, my number 5.
No, hold on. Stay there for a second, though, CJ, because I think that's an important topic, and we'll dive into it, in the coming weeks once this gets resolved. But set the table a little bit for what potentially could be happening with what's going on and what Fred Jones's take was on it. I open that up a little bit just so I want
to be very clear. Mm-hmm. I don't want to cause a panic. I believe everything gets worked out. At the end of the day, I think everything gets worked out. But as of right now, here's a stage for a moment. The city of Memphis owns Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, a.k.a. Liberty Bowl. All right, that's where the Tigers football team plays. Fred Smith, FedEx founder, decided to come in and offer $50 million to the university for the necessary stadium upgrades. But that is contingent on, one, the school getting $50 additional million in donations, and on the school becoming the owner of Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, a.k.a. Liberty Bowl. So that's where we are with that. The Southern Heritage Classic plays at that stadium. They go through the city to book events and make sure that they have access to that stadium. They're on the contract for another year. What the University of Memphis is saying is we plan on honoring, we being the university, plans on honoring the contracts throughout the duration of the contract. So honoring the contracts for AutoZone Liberty Bowl and honoring the contract of the Southern Heritage Classic. Liberty Bowls, the AutoZone Liberty Bowls contract is up some years down the line. So they're fine in this situation. Southern Heritage Classic's contract is up after next year, I do believe. And so there's been no written assurances given to the Southern Heritage Classic that they'll be able to continue to operate in that stadium. And there's some things to discuss about concessions and parking and tailgating and things of that nature. There's been some verbal agreements, but nothing written. And what Mr. Jones, what I gather from the meeting, what he wanted was something written. What the university was saying was they can't agree to terms on anything written in document form because it's not their stadium yet. What the city council is saying is you absolutely can. We're going to get this done, so go ahead and start working that stuff out. That's where I left off at. There was some confusion, I'll say, about who knew what, who understood what was Fred Jones's understanding about the stadium versus what was the university's understanding about the stadium and the other tenants. But I believe that now that all of this is out there, they'll be able to talk through it and everybody will come to an agreement that is beneficial for all parties involved.
And I'm glad you laid that out because it's important to understand the delicate nature of arranging and agreeing to something based on contingencies. So what we have here is contingencies based on contingencies of deals that haven't necessarily gone through yet. Fred Smith's money is contingent upon a matching of the $50 million plus the release of what the state is supposed to give to the stadium in and of itself, which is also contingent upon the city council now saying, hey, all right, we're going to sign off on this. And it's all connected to the Grizzlies as well, too. Ultimately, I do think we get to a great place. But what has to happen is the University of Memphis is going to have to be a good faith partner to Fred Jones in the Southern Heritage Classic, the same way the city was. Now, does the money operate the same? Who knows? We'll see. But that's where the complication comes in at. We'll see if it all gets worked out. I think ultimately Southern Heritage Classic is one of the biggest draws. That game draws more than any University of Memphis regular season home game, especially conference game. So I think that there's a way for this to work out. And I think the Southern Heritage Classic has a lot of leverage going into this, but we'll see. We'll keep you guys updated. But I did want to have CJ lay this all out because I know you're absolutely invested in the outcome of this this situation.
As a reporter or a media member in this city, absolutely. In this city, I said it on the Jessica Benson show, this city has some of the smartest fans in the nation, just intelligent people. As one of those, I care about this. And also, man, I'm be honest, like it's as just a giant goofball who likes to drink and have fun at times. I care about this. I can't imagine living in Memphis and not having the Southern Heritage Classic. I can't imagine waking up on one of these weekends in September and not being able to hear the music of people tailgating, the music of people partying at their houses, the music of the marching bands marching down Park Avenue through Orange Mound. Like I can't fathom that. That is my favorite time of the year in the city of Memphis. I do believe that they'll work everything out and everything will be A-okay. But I don't want, and I'm sure that Fred Jones doesn't want, I did reach out to some of the people over at the Southern Heritage Classic. They offered no comment at this time on anything to do with the stadium, and that's fine. I do believe that everything will get worked out, though. And as somebody who is a purveyor of the Classic, I needed to work out because, like I said, it's my favorite time of the year in the city.
Yeah, no question about it, man. No question about it. Now, back to your pick 6.
Number 5. Howard-Hampton, the battle for the real HU. Hampton won 35-34, 1-point win. Howard played in a handful of close games. You pointed out how close they were to knocking off bowl-eligible Northwestern. They were also close in a couple other games. Some of them didn't go their way, like this one. The battle for the real HU, like I said, was a 1-point victory. Christopher Zealous for the Pirates accounted for not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns. Howard kind of came apart late. They were up 31-14 about midway through the fourth quarter, and then allowed midway through the third quarter, and allowed Hampton to come back on them. So that is my number 5, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, again, if Howard could change 2 or 3 possessions over the course of their season, you're looking at a team that would have easily been an 8 or 9 win team, and we would be talking about them as a formidable team on the come. But they still had a great season. Hampton showed something in that game. I agree. That's another classic right there.
Number 4, I got the Bayou Classic, Southern versus Grambling, 27-22 in favor of Southern, thanks to a big third quarter, 21 points there. Led to Hugh Jackson being let go. Also, didn't realize this, Terrence Graves once coached at Grambling. So he was the interim coach for Southern. I'm sorry, Mike. He became the first coach in the history of the rivalry to lead both sides to victory.
Man, I'm going to let you present that game without any comment from me, man. That's a joke. That's a joke for my Grambling State University alma mater Tigers to fall in the Bayou Classic this year after everything that they had on the line in that game. And the division was already decided, but just for the fact that, hey, if you're going to go out and play with some pride, but hey, look, the fact of the matter is they moved on from Coach Jackson. I've been calling for that, and maybe it took that loss and that result to put the nail in his coffin. So in that sense, yes, put that game up there. That ranks.
Staying in the SWAC West, I'll go Prairie View A&M and Alcorn State. Prairie View A&M won 23-20. This game is on there because it ended up being for the SWAC West. All of the tiebreakers that we talked about, these two teams ended up being tied at the top of that division. If that game goes the other way, we're talking about Alcorn State taking on FAMU and not Prairie View A&M.
Yep. Prairie View used that game right there. It was a field goal at the end of the game. They won it on a field goal by 3. And, that basically separated these two teams. And this was, midway through the season when that game was played. So that tells you how, essential every single possession and every single week is in the SWAC, man. So, yeah, that was a close classic right there.
My number 2, Howard versus North Carolina Central for much of the same reasons as Prairie View and Alcorn State. This game ended up deciding the MEAC, the outright champion in the MEAC. The Bison looked dominant. 50-20 was the score of that game. They ended up holding Richards to just 77 passing yards and 168 total yards of offense. Davius Richards averages about 255 total yards of offense per game, which is good for 20th in the nation. They held him to nearly 100 yards fewer than that. And then their run game really took over. When you look at Eden James and Jared Hunter, they combined for 3 rushing touchdowns for Howard, 200 yards on the ground, about 200 yards on the ground. And this game right here is why Howard gets to go to Atlanta to compete for a Black College Football National Championship.
The fact that you have 2 Howard games on your list right there tells you that team is on the come, and they don't have the resources. They don't have the culture of football that a lot of other schools, HBCUs, particularly in the South, have. But they have a program that is really, really good, and they're going to get even better under Larry Scott.
Before I get to my number 1, Mike, do you got a game that I should have had on there, or any honorable mentions you want to throw out there?
Nah, you know what? I thought, and this was not because of the actual action on the field, but because of the magnitude of it. I thought the game at the beginning of the season, the MEAC SWAC Challenge, Jackson State and South Carolina State, Buddy Pugh starting his final season, and we'll get to more on Buddy in a second. but also that was the game where, Jackson State came out and did their thing. They showed, it was TC Taylor's first victory as a head coach. Nice crowd was there. Puffy, I know he's under controversy right now, but gave $1 million to the school on the field at that game too, and we were there represented as well too. So that game, the MEAC SWAC Challenge, is one I would put there, not necessarily for how it turned out, because Jackson State blew out South Carolina State, but because of the magnitude of the moment. That probably is the only one that comes to mind that I would have added.
I thought about putting that one on there. I thought about putting Jackson State FAMU on there. I know it's going to move to a different date, but I love it being the first game of the year, just reminding folks, hey, right off the bat, right out the gate, you better be on your A game. I thought about putting that one on there. That ended up being a FAMU blowout win. I thought about putting a couple of D2 games on there, Virginia Union, Virginia State, Tuskegee's homecoming game, because of the way that Edward Waters ended up winning that game. I thought about putting those on there, but instead I went with South Carolina State versus Norfolk State. Last game of the season for South Carolina State. They won it, but the stuff on the field doesn't matter. It's on there because Buddy Pugh's last game, Mike. And that brings us to our culture maker this week, which is Coach Buddy Pugh. He coached in his last game at South Carolina State. He is retiring after 22 seasons, 15 winning seasons. 15 of the 22 seasons are winning seasons. He has 115-44 conference record, 151 total wins, 5 postseason trips, finished the year ranked 6 different times, ranked nationally, not just in the black college football polls. He's got 3 black national titles, 8 MEAC titles. He's looking to join Harry Carson, Willie Jeffries, Robert Porcher, Deacon Jones, and so many other people in the Black College Football Hall of Fame. When you think about Coach Buddy Pugh's impact on black college football, Mike, what do you think? What comes to mind?
The fact that he sent so many NFL-ready players to the league from South Carolina State, right? I mean, you talk about, different guys that are, Shaq Leonard, Darius Leonard was his name at the time, but he goes by Shaquille now. Indianapolis Colts, went from South Carolina State, and 3 years into the league, he became the highest paid linebacker in the game, interior linebacker in the game, and an all-pro right off the bat. You've seen him put 3 or 4, 5, 6 other guys in the league who became starters in the NFL. So the fact that Buddy Pugh was able to help these men not only become better players, but become guys that were capable of taking a whole bunch of money and being responsible with how they use their money, how they invest. He's a leader of men, not just football players. I remember when he took over the job. These kind of things date me, man, because I remember covering Willie Jeffries' last game when he was retiring and seeing, that's when I first got into HBCU football back then. And then Willie Jeffries handed it over to Buddy Pugh. And then 22 years later, here we are. So I've seen and been around and covered in and out the entirety of Buddy Pugh's head coaching career there. And it's good to see another legend go out on a winning note right there. Well-deserved for Coach Pugh. And I like what he said. He told ESPN's crew, Tiffany and Jay Walker on the broadcast that, hey, I'm just really looking forward to, doing nothing right now. You know what I mean? I'm looking forward to going fishing, catching up with my friends.
I knew it was going to be something about fishing.
Yeah, fishing, catching up with my friends, and then just watching football without having to think about football all the time. And for him to say that and have his faculties about him to know that, hey, there's another chapter in my life left after this, I'm happy for him, and it was refreshing to hear.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The thing that I most remember about the Buddy Pugh 10 years, the big thing that happened most recently, and that's the Celebration Bowl where they went to Atlanta to take on Jackson State. Coach Prime was there at the time. They were rolling.
Biggest upset in the Celebration Bowl history in my regard. That's the biggest upset.
Handled them. It wasn't close. It wasn't like, oh, okay, Jackson State kind of lost control. No, start to finish, they were on Jackson State and just, boom, manhandled them. And I remember being there because, you get there. We were doing interviews and things of that nature. I was walking around talking to some coaches for South Carolina State. They let us see the start of practice. And South Carolina State, the punter was throwing passes. The defensive tackle was kicking punts. You would think, oh, no, they've got this monster school coming in here, this all-star HBCU coming in here, all these studs on Jackson State, they're going to be super tight. They're going to be real serious, real stern. Nope, they were just out there having fun, man. And I think that tightness that Jackson State played with, I think that's part of the reason they got handled the way that they did in that game. Because Buddy Pugh, the more veteran coach, was like, hey, everybody, relax. It's football. We play it every single Saturday. You've been playing it every single Saturday for most of your lives. Everything's going to be okay. I remember looking at the stark contrast in practices and thinking to myself, oh, Buddy Pugh is a wild man. He is not taking this seriously at all. And lo and behold, he knew what his team needed at that moment, and his team went out there and they performed for him when it mattered.
Oh, no question about it. They did. And that game, you and I were both there. You and I look at what they were able to do building up to that game and the calmness that they had and the loose, and they went out and just executed. And they knew that they had guys that can stand up. That was symbolic of Buddy Pugh's entire tenure there. They're going to overlook us. Nobody's going to talk about South Carolina State. But guess what? We're going to be prepared. And when the time comes for us to show it, we're definitely going to be ready to show it. And that's what they've done. I love their fan base, too. Those are some prideful people in South Carolina. I got roots in South Carolina. I know where that school is. I know the people who follow that program. So there's going to be some big shoes to fill. But if you trust in South Carolina State, you know that whoever decides to come to emerge to replace Buddy Pugh is going to be someone that's going to be successful and set up for success moving forward as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. No doubt in my mind, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure there's no doubt in your mind either, Mike, that Buddy Pugh is going to the Black College Football Hall of Fame. Right.
Yeah, no doubt. He deserves to be there.
Speaking of the Black College Football Hall of Fame, they announced their finalists this year. On the list of finalists, Mike, who stands out to you?
Oh, man. There's a big list right there, a very, very big list. And I'm going through it right now. Rashawn Mathis is a guy. Rashawn Mathis is my guy.
Yeah.
I think, to see what he's done both at HBCU level and in the NFL. Rudy Hubbard, old FAMU coach, the only HBCU to win a national title, a national championship, not national HBCU, but a national championship in 77 or 79, I believe it was, led FAMU to a victory in what was called Division I AA then, national championship. So that stands out too. My guy, Gramblin's own Jake Reed, wide receiver, did his thing big time there. Eddie Robinson Jr. now coaching at Alabama State. So there's some guys. Jaquay Nunnally. I overlooked my guy. Jaquay Nunnally, an original rack boy, run after catch boy at Florida A&M. I covered him. I was around him. Here's this quick story. And I know you didn't anticipate this. And I hope that we can catch up with Jaquay and have him on the show once this goes through. But when Jaquay Nunnally broke Jerry Rice's receptions record, NCAA receptions record, I was covering Florida A&M. He caught the record-setting, I think it was 323rd pass or something like that. They played Southern. He caught it on a shovel pass in Baton Rouge against Southern on a Saturday night. The very next day, the San Francisco 49ers were playing at New Orleans against the Saints. So I extended my stay. I went from Baton Rouge, took the ball. Jaquay Nunnally gave me the ball that he caught for the record. He gave it to me after the game and said, if you're going down there, take it down there and try to see if you can get Jerry Rice to sign it. I took the ball down to New Orleans and covered the game. San Francisco came. It is funny because this was before Terrell Owens. Terrell Owens was like a second-year player. He wasn't crazy T.O. by then. His locker was right next to Jerry Rice. I took the ball and I said, Jerry, your record was just broken last night by Jaquay Nunnally for FAMU, and here's the ball. And, he wanted you to sign it. I know, we're media. We're not supposed to be getting memorabilia signed and all of that. But I just wanted to get a few words from you about Jaquay and seeing the record broken, shared and broken and basically staying in HBCU because it was a national record. It was an NCAA record, not an HBCU. And Jerry Rice, waited patiently and talked to me for about 10 minutes about it. And he basically ended up saying, hey, man, records were made to be broken. I'm glad we kept it in the HBCU ranks. And kudos to Jaquay Nunnally, man. And I took the ball back to Jaquay the next FAMU practice in Tallahassee, man. It made his day, man. So that was an amazing time. And if we can get Jaquay on the show, I'll definitely relive that moment with him right there. So that name is the one that stands out first and foremost to me.
That is an amazing story, Mike. and I'm gonna be honest with you, I got nothing after that, man. That's the mic drop. That's the show. Whoa. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. Thank you to Donal Ware. Follow him at DWare on Twitter. Check him out on Sirius XM Radio, BoxToRow, BoxToRow.com, all of that. And thank you, Mike, for joining us and sharing that awesome story with us. I am CJ, everybody. Have a good one.